The realtor's text message brightened my phone screen with optimism. Everything is ready for tomorrow's closing. I require your down payment confirmation. I grinned while gliding my fingertips across the marble countertop of my kitchen. After years of meticulously saving every cent, my aspiration of owning a craftsman-style house was finally attainable. My name is Malia, and I was approximately to discover through difficult experience that family and finances constitute a perilous combination. Pour more wine, dear. Aunt Sharon's voice interrupted my contemplation. She stood there in her fancy outfit, a crystal decanter held aloft, representing the family as the matriarch since my mother's demise. She has insisted on holding this special meal tonight. No, thank you. I should maintain clarity. She has meticulously shaped her eyebrows and arched them elegantly. What conclusion am I purchasing? I expressed my excitement for the Craftsman house, displayed images of the residence including a wraparound porch. She placed the decanter down with a distinct clink. Beloved, we must discuss a matter of significance. Initially, the alteration in her tone caused my hair gut tightened. Something was amiss. A family issue had arisen, prompting her to retrieve her iPad. Meticulously groomed fingers striking the screen indicate that your cousin George's medical expenses have entirely depleted the family's finances. We require contributions from everyone for the family fund that your mother assisted with. It was established before her passing. You must recall signing the paperwork last year. She handed the iPad across the table. And you consented to be a joint account holder. My hands grew cold as I gazed at the banking application. My savings account, which I had been cultivating for years, had a balance of $246. On 2 occasions, my voice emerged as a whisper, which was essential for familial matters. Sharon's expression softened with practiced pity as Georgia needed urgent assistance. In surgery, family takes precedence. Malia, your mother would have desired this. I stood up so abruptly that my chair fell backward. Do not invoke my mother in this matter, she commanded. Justify this. Sit down, her mask slipping. You dramatically accuse me of stealing your house down payment, but I deny such an allegation. You authorized the transfer upon signing the joint agreement. Which agreement are you referring to? I then recalled the stack of documents she had me sign before Christmas dinner, which she claimed were revised beneficiary documents for my mother's previous life insurance policy that you manipulated. The knowledge struck me with the force of a physical blow. Sharon's lips tightened as I defended myself, preventing you from making a hasty decision. You are not prepared for home ownership. The family required those dollars more than you did. I required a trivial residence, so I retrieved my phone with unsteady fingers and initiated a call to the cops proceeded. And her smile became acutely incisive. I possess your signature on each document. A document's legality does not necessarily imply its ethical correctness. She chuckled at this notion. Right is safeguarding this family's interests by prioritizing your mother's requests, placing family before anything else. In my youth and naivety, I leaned across the table, positioning myself directly in front of her. Mother would be appalled by your actions. The color went from her face. I exited my residence with enthusiasm, seizing my purse and proceeding towards the door. Nevertheless, do not assume this. We've concluded the confrontation. Don't be naive, Malia. Victory is unattainable for you against me. As I turned away from her, I gazed as the door banged behind me with gratifying power. In my car, I finally exhaled. Tears cascade as years of savings vanish in a moment, my dream house slipping away. However, beneath the sorrow, a more resolute force was emerging. Determination. My phone vibrated. The realtor requires confirmation by 9 a.m. again. All matters will be addressed tomorrow, I responded with trembling fingertips, indicating that I must postpone due to a family emergency. I accessed my contacts and navigated to a number I hadn't called in years. Nick. Nick, my childhood best buddy who had transformed into the financial investigator, answered on the third ring. Malia.it has been an eternity, Nick. I require your assistance. I took a big breath and recalled everything. The peculiar behaviors we observed in Aunt Sharon following our mother's death may have only revealed a glimpse of the underlying issue. I am prepared to disrupt my aunt's seemingly flawless existence. That night, as I drove home, Sharon's words resonated in my mind. Family comes first. She was correct regarding one aspect. This matter pertained to family, albeit not in the manner she anticipated. Concerned justice, truth, and ensuring she never inflicted harm on another one in that manner she had injured me. The game was underway, and I was determined to prevail. In the attic of my the mother's antiquated residence reeked of dust and neglected recollections, with cardboard boxes stacked around me, each representing a possibility. A hint for deciphering Aunt Sharon's. I had been engaged for hours when my phone vibrated. Any success? Nick's voice crackled across the line. Nothing thus far. I adjusted my position. Another box released a cloud of dust into the atmosphere. However, Sharon's narrative of George's the medical costs are inconsistent. I just spoke with Georgia, who has not undergone any surgery. However, the copy of Mom's will that Sharon presented to us after the funeral is missing. It bequeathed everything to the family trust, but I definitely recall my mother informing me that she would establish individual inheritances for the attic while the floorboard groaned behind me. I turned to see my cousin Heidi at the top of the steps. Her eyes fixed on me. I muttered to Nick that I would call him back and then disconnected. What are you doing here, Heidi? I could pose the same inquiry, as this remains my mother's. Heidi's expression softened when Sharon instructed me to check on you. She is concerned that you may act impulsively. Fearing that I might discover something. I retrieved a dusty folder with bank statements that document transfers to offshore accounts commencing the day following upon her mother's death. Heidi's hands began to fidget with her necklace, a manifestation of her anxiety. Malia has had this since childhood. Please exercise caution. Sharon asked the connection a threat or a warning. She peered over her shoulder. I should not disclose this, but last year, when I inquired about any irregularities in my trust fund, it was peculiar that my job applications were inexplicably rejected, and my rental application was declined. Sharon directed you to the folder, and Heidi acknowledged that she has Fletcher, the family member. They retain a lawyer, and Hazel handles all financial concealments associated with her mother's former business. Heidi approached her companion, lowering her voice, as they had been collaborating for years. However, Sharon erred in her dealings with you. She became avaricious and extracted an excessive amount simultaneously, resulting in I retrieved my phone and began photographing the bank. Heidi, assist me in subduing her. I hesitated. I cannot publicly resist her. Yet she retrieved something from her purse. A little key that unlocks mother's antiquated filing cabinet at the lakeside residence. Sharon is unaware that I had it. As I retrieved the key and a handwritten note fluttered out from among the bank statements in my mother's recognizable handwriting. My beloved Malia, if you are reading this, everything has gone awry. Do not trust the official. The authentic document is with Marcus at Coastal Credit Union. Sharon must remain unaware. Love, Mom. Heidi shook her head, indicating she was unaware of this. Despite her trembling palms, Aunt Sharon has been altering family history for years. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut, followed by heavy footsteps. Heidi swiftly murmured while ascending the stairs, seizing the documents and thrusting them. Fletcher emerged at the top of the steps, acting nonchalantly as he entered her luggage. A fine outfit incongruous amidst the dusty boxes that Sharon instructed me to examine. Heidi stated effortlessly that you are merely assisting Malia in organizing some old memories. Indeed, cousin, I compelled a smile. There is nothing of significance here, merely Fletcher's gaze. Sharon indicated that you may be distressed with the family finance issue. Perhaps we should deliberate this matter in my office. There is no necessity, I stated while rising. I now comprehend that family takes precedence. He nodded slowly in agreement. I appreciate your rationality regarding this matter. As we went down the stairs, Heidi grasped my hand 3 times swiftly. Pulses of our upbringing signaled to meet later outside. Nick awaited in his car around the corner as I slid inside. I retrieved my phone from the passenger seat and displayed the bank statement photographs to him. Indicating that this situation is more significant than we anticipated, he mentioned that while perusing the photographs, these transfers are present. Can you trace them, sophisticated professional? It will require time, but Malia, he regarded me with seriousness, as if to confirm the accuracy of my observations. This situation transcends mere savings. It may constitute significant financial theft. I reflected about my mother's note. Regarding Heidi's caution over the years of manipulation, I was just starting to comprehend well. I stated this since I am finished being accommodating. The initial action is Coastal Credit Union. It is time to locate my mother's authentic will. Nick commenced the vehicle. Sharon will be unaware of the impact as I consent to observe my childhood residence. She will not disappear in the rearview mirror. As Heidi entered the coffee shop, which was abuzz with morning activity. Sharon, seated opposite me, has a pale complexion and appears to be on a warpath. She is aware of this. You visited Coastal Credit Union yesterday. allowing her to express her frustration while I ordered a latte. The bank manager acknowledged that the safety deposit box belonging to her mother was emptied 3 days following her death. Would you like to speculate on who signed for access, as mentioned by Sharon and Hazel, according to Heidi? Enveloping her hands around the steaming cup, they are invariably united when something dubious occurs. Bingo, but here is the manager recalled them due to their argument in the lobby, as Hazel was evidently displeased. Nick approached with his laptop, sliding it next to me while discussing Hazel. He directed the screen towards us, displaying a sequence of banks. Each significant withdrawal from your account was succeeded by a deposit into Hazel's offshore account. Heidi leaned forward for hours. Do not forget Thomas. Sharon's ex-husband did not leave her for his secretary, contrary to popular belief. He discovered something in her files and threatened to reveal it. A week later, his business was audited, resulting in his loss. Everything Jesus, I murmured. How long has this persisted? Sharon has been manipulating events since prior to your mother's death. The family fund serves only as her facade. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed as Hazel entered, her luxury purse firmly grasped against her cream blazer. Our table became hushed when she noticed us and momentarily halted. Exhibiting an expression akin to remorse, a look passed across her face. Then she turned and raced away, prompting Nick to say, "Follow her. I will locate her vehicle. I am currently with Hazel in the parking lot." She accelerated her pace, indicating that I have nothing to communicate to you. Truly not even a word regarding my mother's safety deposit box. She halted so suddenly that I nearly collided with her. You cannot comprehend what transpired. Hazel surveyed the vacant surroundings before elucidating the matter at hand. "Oh, not meet me in the parking lot. Instead, rendezvous at the old boathouse by the lake at 3 o'clock. Please attend." Before I could reply, she abruptly entered her Mercedes and accelerated away. "Well, that was dramatic," Heidi remarked. "You are not truly traveling alone, are you?" "Of course not. Nick will accompany you nearby." I examined my phone. A text from Fletcher had just arrived, necessitating a discussion over recent matters, office developments at 2 p.m. "He is attempting to intercept us," Heidi stated while reading. "Sharon, positioned behind me, is likely becoming anxious. This is advantageous, so let us provide her with a challenge." I am genuinely concerned. I emailed Nick's banking data to my inbox and then made a call. I informed Fletcher that I would attend, but I will present evidence of fraud. The decision to be either part of the problem or the solution is yours. Silence ensued on the line thereafter. "The office has a rear door. Utilize that." 2 hours later, I was seated opposite Fletcher in his wood-paneled office. As he examined the sliding copies of the bank transfers across his desk, his complexion became progressively more ashen. He cleared his throat and stated that this is a matter of great seriousness. No jesting intended. Do you wish to inform me? Why have you been assisting in concealing it? He adjusted his tie. Your aunt can be rather. She possesses information that could jeopardize my career. It is blackmail. Please include it in the list. Leaning closer, I urged Fletcher to assist in taking her down or to accompany her in her descent. He fixed his gaze on the art stored on a USB drive located in her personal safe. I lack access to everything, but Heidi does. I mentioned that Sharon has trust in this. She is to water the plants in her absence. Fletcher checked his watch. Sharon scheduled the charity board meeting for 4 p.m., and I stood behind the painting in her study, where the safe was located. I will be late to my meeting with Hazel. Hazel's head sprang up. Do not trust. Malia is not what she appears. What do you mean? However, Fletcher was already rearranging documents while evading my gaze. Exercise caution. And Malia, I seen these documents and we did not engage in this talk outdoors. Nick was waiting in his vehicle. What transpired? There has been a modification of plans. We must access Sharon's residence promptly. I presented him with Fletcher's text, including the safe combination, prepared to disclose some information. He smiled as we discussed the breaking and entering to uncover fraud and theft. As we drove, approaching Sharon's residence, my phone vibrated with a message from an unfamiliar number. Your mother attempted to intervene as well. Do not replicate her errors, Nick, I stated softly. I believe we must ascertain what my mother experienced a significant event. He tightened his grasp on the steering wheel. Let us address one matter at a time, beginning with an examination of that. I nodded in affirmation while observing Sharon's mansion enlarge in the windshield. Today, it will unfold in one manner or another. My heart raced as Heidi guided us into Sharon's residence, the security code emitting a green beep. As we stealthily approached the study, Heidi murmured about Sharon's meetings. At times, the end concluded prematurely. Nick stood guard at the entrance as I adjusted the picture. An ostentatious oil landscape that unveiled themey fingers trembled as I entered the combination for the wall safe concealed behind it, as provided by Fletcher. Upon the safe's successful opening, I inhaled deeply and reached inside, my palm closing around the contents. Adjacent to a USB drive are various folders, and what is this? A small red journal. Leather, aged and softened, bore my mother's engraved initials on the cover. Nick's anxious voice pierced the silence. A car was approaching the driveway. It was Hazel's Mercedes, Heidi hissed while peering through the curtains. I hastily packed everything into my suitcase. We then descended the fire escape. As the front door opened, we observed Hazel enter the house while crouching behind a hedge near the metal stairs. With the phone close to her ear, she said, "Yes, Sharon, I'm here. No, the safe appears to be untouched. Of course, I will verify if the USB remains intact." Her voice rose forcefully, inquiring, "What do you mean?" Fletcher called to Nick, tugging my arm, indicating it was time to leave. We hurried to his parked car. As we departed, I observed Hazel emerge from the house, anxiously calling her phone. Heidi said from the back seat, "Too close." I retrieved the USB drive. Nick transported us to his residence, where he could securely retrieve the contents of the drive. I opened my mother's diary, its pages filled with her recognizable handwriting. "Holy," Nick exclaimed abruptly, gazing at his laptop screen. "These are not merely banking records, contain emails, contracts, and offshore account details indicating that Sharon has been embezzling from several sources. Family trusts have been a topic of discussion for years." I indicated this by linking to a journal entry written by my mother. She confronted Sharon with the stolen money 3 days prior to her death, intending to disclose everything at the next opportunity. During the family meeting, Heidi's complexion turned pale due to her absence. Following her accident, a profound quiet enveloped the room. Nick cleared his throat. "These documents indicate that Sharon and Hazel have been orchestrating a complex fraud enterprise. The family trust served as a pretext for a sudden knock at the door, startling us all. It was the cops." Nick swiftly removed the USB disk and threw it to me, instructing me to exit out the back door. Heidi and I discreetly exited. Just as Nick opened the front door, I observed Fletcher standing behind 2 officers through the window. We sprinted 3 blocks before pausing to recuperate. While we were breathing, my phone vibrated with a text from Nick regarding Fletcher's filed complaint, stolen documents. "Police departing to meet at the regular location in 1 hour. We need to discuss this." Hazel. Heidi stated that she perceives herself as the weak link. "Did you observe her panic earlier?" I displayed my phone to her, revealing a message I had sent to Hazel regarding the USB. "All meetings will occur in 30 minutes at the lake house or the public docks." The response arrived promptly. "Do not take any action alone. The lake cottage was unoccupied upon our arrival." Heidi positioned herself upstairs. As I waited on the deck, I had a clear view of the approach. The USB disk felt weighty in my pocket, alongside Hazel's Mercedes. She arrived punctually, emerging slowly with her palms raised to indicate her solitude. "Where is Sharon?" I inquired. Hazel ascended the deck steps, unaware of my presence, and initiated conversation. She abruptly slumped into a chair, appearing older and fatigued. "Your mother was my closest friend and my companion. Upon discovering Sharon's actions, sought my assistance in collecting evidence. Nevertheless, Sharon became aware and subsequently concealed the information. On the night preceding your mother's death, Sharon threatened my daughter's life if I did not assist in concealing the events." "Why disclose this?" She retrieved a folded paper from her jacket. "Due to this, the final letter from my mother caused my hands to tremble as I unfurled the paper. The date indicated 1 day prior to my mother's death. Hazel, if anything occurs to me, the evidence is located in the basement of the summer cabin, concealed behind the antiquated wine rack. Ensure Malia's safety. She is the only individual sufficiently resilient to handle the situation." I gazed at Hazel. The cabin has remained locked for years. She reached into her purse and extracted a key before I could answer to Heidi. A warning yell echoed as many headlights emerged on the access road, indicating the arrival of 3 vehicles. Quickly, Sharon. Hazel murmured that she must have followed me, and I seized her arm. "Could the contents of that cabin be enough to render her incapacitated?" She acknowledged everything from the original. "We shall present evidence of her crimes. Let us proceed now as we hurry to her vehicle. The phone illuminated with a message from Nick, indicating he evaded the police. Sharon has convened an emergency family meeting for tomorrow. Expedite your plans. The game is approaching its conclusion. The cellar of the summer cabin reeked of mold, and I possessed all the components. Hazel's flashlight beam penetrated the darkness, illuminating rows of dusty wine. She indicated the third rack from the left, and my fingers followed its contours. I applied considerable force to the timber frame until I detected a small gap behind the rack. The entire piece pivoted outward like a door, unveiling a little alcove, murmured as she reached inside a metal lockbox that had remained precisely where she concealed it years prior. Hazel handed me Sharon's small key from her key ring. Her hands trembled as she said, "She likely has already arrived at the lake cottage. We lack." After a considerable duration, the lockbox opened with a click, revealing a substantial manila package inside. A USB disk labeled evidence, accompanied by the sound of footsteps creaking on the floor above us. Malia froze as Nick's voice called down, "It's me and Heidi," and relief washed over her. They hastened down the stairs, with Heidi grasping her. "Sharon has been quite agitated. She has contacted every family member, claiming that you have lost your sanity and are fabricating stories. Deceptions of her impeccable timing. At which point I began extracting the contents of the envelope, as we discovered that something was amiss with the documents. Incorrect, excessively recent, overly sharp in the USB disk. Hazel's flashlight beam abruptly. "Apologies, Malia." The basement door abruptly closed above us as a key was turned. I muttered to Heidi as she hurried up the stairs, "Rattling the lock you had set for us. The door handle is locked." "Sharon has my daughter, Hazel," her voice trembling. There was no alternative. Heavy footsteps traversed the floor above while Sharon's voice resonated. "Did you genuinely believe it would be that simple, Malia? That your mother would—" "Years have passed without monitoring the evidence. Where is the substantial proof I asked for?" I turned to Hazel, but she remained unresponsive. "Sharon obliterated the majority. What remains is secured in her secret vault at First National, in conjunction with your mother's authentic will. Was contacted by Sharon, albeit regrettably, none were present. The cops are en route. Malia's act of breaking and entering is a grave offense." Nick extracted his phone. There was no signal. Hazel calmly stated to Sharon that she considers all aspects. Hazel pointed the spotlight toward the little window near the ceiling. "Nick, provide me a boost," she said. "The police will apprehend all individuals trespassing with stolen documents in their possession, resulting in a significant scandal, unless what is signed. Renounce your rights to the family trust and depart. I will inform the police that it was all a mistake. It may seem severe in the dim basement, but do you truly believe I am concerned about the money? This pertains to your actions towards me." "Mother," the quiet above was overwhelming. "Exercise caution, Malia," Sharon eventually spoke. "Accidents are hereditary." Heidi gasped as Nick seized my arm. Even Hazel appeared astonished. "Did you just admit to murdering my mother?" "Of course not," Sharon replied. "It is important to note that tragedy can affect anyone, including the young." While she spoke, I examined the old, rusty bars on the window, indicating the presence of healthy individuals even tonight. "Frame Nick." I inquired softly whether you copied those documents from the USB disk. He consented to send them by encrypted email to my work account, which is why I intervened at my mother's diary. As Sharon replicated the same error with me that she committed with Mom. She miscalculated how having amassed considerable proof. I raised my voice and cried out to Sharon. "Hey Aunt Sharon, do you recall Mom's old diary? I have emailed photographs of every page from your safe to the family email list, incorporating the records of your threats before her demise. You are deceivingly asserting verification." Your footsteps hastily retreated from the door, followed shortly by Sharon's scream. Rage reverberated throughout the house as Nick forcefully collided his shoulder. Upon striking the window frame once, then twice, the entire frame dislodged on the third impact from the decaying wood. I turned to Hazel, who shook her head and stated, "I will retain her." Distracted, "Save your mother's name, Malia." We exited just as the police arrived. Sirens blasted in the distance as I traversed the woods. I could still hear Sharon's fury reverberating. Heidi gasped in the cabin as we hurried past First National Bank. I remarked about the night. The manager is indebted to Nick, and Sharon's private vault is unlikely to remain confidential for an extended period. My phone vibrated with an influx of texts. Family members reacted to Mom's diary entries, each response increasingly startled and indignant. The meeting scheduled for tomorrow has become far more intriguing, as Nick remarked, prompting me to smile. Sharon, with a somber demeanor, expressed her desire to discuss familial secrets. Quite well, let us address them all, although you lack the means to open this vault, the night manager stated, peering apprehensively between Nick and myself. Without proper authorization. Marcus leaned forward. Recall when I assisted in exonerating your brother from fraud accusations. It is now time to reciprocate. The manager wiped his brow. Sharon will sue the bank while she is preoccupied with the FBI. He read the entry from March 15 in his mother's journal across his desk, and his eyes opened. This text pertains to money laundering and more severe issues. Days after writing that, Marcus abruptly stood and followed me to the vault section of the bank. The vault section of the bank seemed cooler than the rest of the structure. Marcus's keycard emitted 3 beeps before the heavy door opened. He stated, Vault 247, as he guided us into a narrow corridor. You have 15 minutes. Prior to the security system resetting within Sharon's vault, we discovered piles of documents and USB drives. Sealed envelope labeled Original Will received by Margaret Stanley. I exhaled deeply. I trembled when I opened the envelope while Nick was capturing images of everything else with his camera. Malia, please examine the transaction records for this offshore account. A text illuminated my phone. Sharon has been pilfering from more than just your family. Sharon has contacted the police again, Heidi. We must expedite our actions, I stated while hastily packing. I inserted the wheel into my jacket when the vault door abruptly commenced closing. No, Nick. He wedged his foot in the gap, but it continued to shift. Marcus overrode the manager's commands. The intercom emitted a crackling sound stating, I apologize, Sharon is present with security. A hefty thud seals the door, trapping Marcus inside. We are inside. And Nick remarked into the darkness, this is less than ideal. I extracted it. I utilized my phone's light to scrutinize the paperwork we had discovered. At least we obtained what we sought. Authentic proof of my mother's will. Regarding Sharon's offenses, they will be inconsequential if we perish in this location. The intercom emitted static once more. Sharon's voice resonated within the vault. Having discovered something intriguing, beloved, you murdered her, did you not? I indicated that mother would reveal your actions, prompting you to orchestrate her demise. Such a vivid imagination, however, given your keen interest in the facts, allow me to elucidate what transpired about your mother. Nick was scrutinizing the vault. He caught my eye and nodded slightly as I illuminated the door's hinges with my phone's light. Sharon asserted that her mother was feeble, believing that everyone was entitled to compassion. She desired an equitable distribution of the family riches by dissolving the trust and allocating each individual's part. Can you envision that? All that meticulously controlled capital was squandered, prompting you to intervene. I attempted to persuade her and presented an offer. She sought a collaboration. Yet she was resolute in her intent to dismantle everything I had established. The tampering with the brake lines in her vehicle was a terrible action. However, it was imperative. Nick became still, and I sensed the blood leave my face. Did you just make a confession? To commit homicide following a recorded bank security system's quiet. Then mayhem ensued outside. The numerous shouts echoed as a substantial object struck the door's mechanism. Life swung open to disclose Heidi, accompanied by Marcus and 2 FBI agents. She raised her phone to record the moment. I invoked the favor you referenced. She informed Nick that the FBI was involved. They apprehended Sharon, who lay face down on the floor with her hands restrained behind her back, sparking significant interest in her financial operations. You foolish girl, she exclaimed. You have no comprehension of what you have done. The agents expressed gratitude for your confession, and with the proof recently obtained by Miss Stanley, we possess precise knowledge of the situation. Sharon Mills, you are under arrest for fraud and embezzlement. The murder of Margaret Stanley occurred as they escorted Sharon away, and I held my mother's will tightly against my chest. Nick stated that we still have the family meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Heidi. The entire family heard Sharon's confession, which I was live-streaming to the family group chat. As I smiled grimly, my phone vibrated with a message from Hazel. Sharon's daughter assisted me in my escape. I will provide testimony on all events. Inform your contacts. The subsequent hours unfolded in a haze of FBI interrogations and documentation. Heidi and I sat at my kitchen table, with empty coffee cups strewn between us. The family gathering commences in 4 hours. Heidi inquired about the strategy as I meticulously examined my mother's will. We disclose all pertinent information on Sharon's plots concerning our mother's murder and the intended distribution of the trust years ago. People would be astonished. Nick cautioned that some may not accept it with anger. I assert that I possess the will, which contains explicit instructions from my mother for equal distribution of shares. Everyone, including Sharon, felt it was time to rectify matters as Heidi stretched across the table and grasped my hand. Your mother would be proud. I watched the sunrise from my window, but I have to finish first. Nick, could you transport me to the cemetery? I require assistance. To inform mother that we have ultimately achieved justice. The truth had cost her life, but now it would finally restore our family. Tension filled the family meeting room, with faces occupying every chair around the large wooden table. After years of absence, Georgia, seated immediately across from me, turned toward me with an anxious gaze, her fingers tapping nervously. Fletcher, positioned in the corner, seems to prefer any location above his current one. Before we commence, I stated while standing at the head of the table, often occupied by Sharon, I wish to express my gratitude to everyone for. Is it true that Georgia exclaimed this on such short notice? Regarding Sharon's incarceration, I acknowledged it, but there is significantly more to the story. I assumed the role of mother. The diary on the table prompts a recounting of the events concerning my mother. The room became hushed as I perused the concluding notes. Mother's suspicions regarding Sharon, the threats, and the revelation of missing monies. With each syllable, the anxiety intensified. It is implausible. Uncle Robert. Sharon claimed that Margaret's death was accidental, but she frequently lied about several matters. Heidi articulated remarks while positioned next to me as she played the taped confession from the bank vaults. Cries reverberated through the room and Georgia commenced weeping. Uncle Robert's visage became purple, as corroborated by the FBI. All of Nick's contributions pertain to the distribution of Sharon's financial documents. She has been embezzling from all of you for years. The family fund served as a facade for her personal accounts. What about our trusts, Aunt? Patricia insisted on our inheritances, and I retrieved our mother's original document after our mother's death. Everything was intended to be dispersed equitably. However, Sharon concealed the will and fabricated a counterfeit version in an effort to assert dominance. Fletcher advanced and cleared his throat, stating, I can confirm this. I assisted Sharon in fabricating the phony will regarding Uncle Robert's steadfast position. His chair fell backward. Sit down, Robert, I stated emphatically. Fletcher is already seated. Admitted to the FBI in return for clemency. However, he is not the sole individual who assisted. The door opened, and Hazel entered as numerous individuals began to shout simultaneously. Hazel raised her hands, requesting to explain everything for the next 30 minutes. Minutes documented Hazel's allegation of Sharon's extensive manipulation and deceit, including concealed accounts and intimidation of families. Georgia questioned why Sharon, who had meticulously created a web of deception to maintain control over everyone, was now revealing the truth. Wiping her eyes, Malia Hazel stated that she acted as her mother did. Could she not have gathered sufficient evidence to safely implicate Sharon? I opened my laptop to display account statements. These are your actual inheritance amounts prior to Sharon's embezzlement, as indicated by the FBI, which has immobilized all her assets upon her confession, and these records can return everything to its rightful state. The owners caused the room to erupt in overlapping conversations and inquiries regarding quantities. Allegations regarding knowledge of the situation necessitate a prompt response. I forcefully struck my hand on the table. This matter transcends mere financial concerns. My mother perished while endeavoring to safeguard this family from Sharon's avarice. She wished for everyone to be free from manipulation and threats. Silence ensued once more. I have made preparations. Documents for the dissolution of the family trust will be distributed by Nick, who will provide folders once signed by all parties involved. Will Sharon receive her full inheritance as originally intended, Aunt? Patricia inquired about the forfeiture, to which I responded that the FBI is confiscating her assets as proceeds of criminal activity. Despite the crime, her daughter Amy will inherit her mother's original share of the estate. Georgia, with tears in her eyes, rose up and expressed her want to speak. Malia, I was unaware that Sharon was appropriating my name to deceive you. I apologize. I previously stated softly. She manipulated us against one another. That ceases today. One by one, family members stepped forward to endorse the dissolution forms. With each signature, I sensed my mother's presence. As we presented the final document, I mentioned that there was one more issue we needed to resolve. Mother signed notes for each of you, concealed with her will, which Sharon never discovered it. I delivered the sealed envelopes, observing as individuals opened them with trembling hands, soon filling the room. Amidst muted cries and tears, they perused their mother's last message. What transpires next, Heidi? Nick inquired after the meeting concluded, scheduling Sharon's preliminary hearing for next week. With the facts and admissions we possess, she will never attain freedom again, family members commenced, filtering out some who embrace me while others remain too astonished to articulate. She expressed her desire to assist with the court matter in any capacity I required. I embraced her. Her mother would appreciate it later. As Nick drove me home, I finally sensed the burden alleviating from my shoulders. I can now purchase my house. I suddenly realized, while laughing, that this is what you have been contemplating. My mother often remarked on it. Home is the foundation of your future. I grinned as I observed the sunset illuminating the sky. It is time for me to construct. My phone flashed with a text from the realtor indicating that the Craftsman house remains available. Prepared to go? I said affirmatively that I am ready. For reporters crowded the courthouse stairs as they escorted Sharon out in handcuffs. She made eye contact with me. She transitioned from her fancy attire to jail orange, her impeccable makeup now absent. For an instant, I observed an unprecedented display of defeat in her demeanor as Nick remarked while squeezing, I have no hope of release. Heidi embraced me from the opposite side. On one hand, it is truly concluded. On the other, not entirely, I remarked, observing Sharon go into the distance and the jail transport truck. There is one final task. The journey to my new residence felt this time. The Craftsman's wraparound porch greeted us with the late afternoon sunlight. And Georgia was present. She was already waiting on the steps, holding a package. I found these in Sharon's storage unit, she remarked as we approached. Old family photographs that you may like to utilize for the interior of the vacant house. The rooms resonated with potential as Nick and Heidi commenced unpacking boxes, while Georgia and I organized the photographs. On the floor, observe this one, she remarked, presenting a faded photograph of your mother and Sharon. The teenagers appeared genuinely content together prior to the corrupting influence of money. Young Sharon smiled at the camera with her arm around it while I captured the photo. On my mother's shoulders, both naive and oblivious to the impending events, the doorbell rang as Hazel stood on the porch. Accompanied by her daughter Amy, we presented a housewarming gift, which Amy extended towards us. A small pot of herbs. Mother mentioned that Aunt Margaret cultivated these in her kitchen. Basil. Hazel grinned. She usually did. Stated that a home requires a live element to evolve alongside it. I welcomed them inside, observing Amy. They drove toward Georgia, sharing photographs, recounting stories, laughing over past memories and forging new ones. Connections that Sharon had endeavored to avert appeared next, accompanied by Fletcher. Fletcher retrieved a thick packet containing the final papers, which confirmed the proper allocation of all inheritances. A set of keys belonging to you for your mother's lake cottage and the real estate. The agent can list it at your convenience. I am not selling it, as I previously stated. My mother cherished the location. We will utilize it for authentic family gatherings. As the afternoon transition night fell, additional family members arrived with meals. Uncle Robert fitted new security locks while his wife assisted in organizing the kitchen furniture and anecdotes related to their relative. Thomas established the Wi-Fi network, and the house gradually filled with voices and laughter as Nick located me on the porch. Are you seeking a respite from the turmoil within? He inquired, offering me a glass of wine is preferable to merely satisfactory. I observed my genuine family collaborating via the window. To create something novel, I reflect on my mother. She desired this, not merely the superficial distribution of wealth, yet this family unites in support rather than division. She would take pride in you. I corrected myself. I could not have accomplished this independently. Heidi emerged, saying, Hey, we discovered something intriguing in one of Sharon's boxes. You must observe this. Everyone had congregated around the dining table. Hazel was carrying a manila envelope with notes written by Sharon. However, she never dispatched them. She elucidated that there was one for each family member, including you, Malia. She composed them the evening prior to her apprehension. I opened mine gradually, identifying Sharon's meticulous handwriting. Handwriting, Malia, by the time you peruse this, I will have forfeited everything. More formidable than your mother, you outsmarted me in my own domain. and a part of me takes pride in that achievement. I have deluded myself into believing you safeguarded the family riches, but you prioritized the family itself. It is what Margaret would have desired. I apologize for losing track of that, Sharon. However, Georgia mentioned it in the quiet that approximates a genuine apology from her. It suffices, I remarked as I folded the letter. While we cannot alter the past, we can construct a superior future. Nick elevated his wine glass to new beginnings and family. I adjusted my gaze, observing the expressions of those present who had transitioned from strangers to genuine supporters. Later that night, after everyone had upon returning home, I sat on my new porch swing, listening to the neighborhood transition into darkness. The house keys felt appropriate in my hand, as if anticipating my arrival. My phone illuminated with a message from Georgia. Thank you for reuniting for supper at my residence next week. I responded with a smile, indicating I would not miss it. The basil plant on my windowsill extended its leaves toward the moonlight. My mother was correct. A house requires an entity to develop with it, and now ultimately both the residents and our family had the capacity to expand. The porch swing emitted a gentle creak as I swayed, finding tranquility in the silence that Sharon had attempted to cultivate. Construct an empire of secrets and fear. Instead, she afforded me the opportunity to establish something far more robust. Truth, trust, and a genuine home for the family that Mother had always envisioned.